Good afternoon and welcome to the Healthy Indoors Live Show. I'm your host, Bob Krell. I'm the founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors Magazine. And hey, thanks for joining us today. We've got a special show coming up. I'm super excited. I'll be joined today as a guest by our managing editor, Susan Valenti. She's been involved with Healthy Indoors since the beginning, and we're going to have a really interesting discussion on kind of the state of indoor environmental quality, indoor air quality in the industry right now. So we're really looking forward to that. Hey, guess what? It's just to remind you again, it is our ninth birthday with Healthy Indoors magazine. So we turned 9 this month, which is a crazy landmark. I don't know how that actually happened, but here we are. It went pretty fast. Again, you can get, if you don't currently subscribe to Healthy Indoors magazine, you can get a copy of that emailed to you every month by going to healthyindoors.com, our primary website, and you can click on the subscription link there. Or if you happen to be watching the show today on the Healthy Indoors online global community, which we'll talk about in a second, you can access the magazine and all the back issues there right in the Healthy Indoors magazine portal, which is pretty cool. But hey, you know what? That's all the free stuff you can do at the online global community. It's open to the world as far as all our shows, broadcasts, magazines, all of our publications. But there's so much more if you actually become a member of the magazine. Uh, we're launching for all of our members of the Healthy Indoors online global community. We're starting what we're calling the AMAs, the Ask Me Anything sessions with industry experts. And we're starting off next week, next Tuesday, with an Ask Me Anything with Cole Stanton, talking about restoration and mitigation chemistry. So it's all the things that you always probably wanted to ask about the chemicals that we use in this industry for restoration work, mold remediation, on and on. Cole's been really a prominent expert in this industry for over 27 years. So super exciting. Join us. It's going to be live next Tuesday here on the community from 1 to 2 p.m. We'd like you to submit questions in advance. So we'll tell you more about that later and how you can submit your questions for that event. Hey, but if you want to join that event, you got to be a member of the community. So go to healthyindoors.global, and that's how you can actually sign up and become a member of the community. We'll be offering these Ask Me Anythings on a monthly basis, along with a lot of other premium content that you can get from the magazine and excuse me, from the community. Why did I say that? Anyway, that being said, I think it's high time that I stop stuttering here and bring in my co-host for today's show, Susan Valenti. How are you?
Hi, Bob.
I was
Long
just
time no see.
yeah, long time. It's been so long. So Susan was really back here in the beginning, the early days, and here we
I'm
are.
like, which
Well, I mean,
early days are you talking about?
see, that's
I'm like, was
we do
that the
need to.
1992 early
I
days
was going to say, yeah, we do need
or
to qualify
the
that.
or the 2013 early days?
Yeah, well, okay. So I guess I was initially referring to the 2013 early days of Healthy Indoors. But
Okay.
of course, the early days go a lot further back than Healthy Indoors, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Susan, for those of you who don't remember, because some of you may not be old enough to remember because we've been around so freaking long. Many of you weren't born when we started in the industry. Uh, Ew, that's horrible, but true. Susan was the publisher of the first big uh, industry publication in this industry, Indoor Air Review, right? That's what it's
Yes.
called, Indoor Air Review.
It was indoor air review, and then it changed to indoor environment review, and then we did, God, like, lead detection and abatement contractor. We did lead poisoning report. We did a building air review. We did like a lot of things back then.
Yeah, and then you liked it so much later on, you bought the publication and rebranded it, kind of.
Oh, well,
Well,
we
it
didn't.
was it was a
Well,
new publication, right?
well, yeah, we actually went out and we just started a new publication. We didn't buy it
Oh, well.
because it was too expensive. Remember?
Oddly enough, though, I was able to acquire the URL for all of the
Yeah,
IAQ
for
pubs and everything because they
yeah,
they
for
were
really
they
cheap.
were available, and I felt as a tribute to that co-founder of that organization, Larry Siegelman, who, honest to God, was one of my mentors early in the industry. I
He was
felt
a
that I
great
had to
guy.
have that. I had to have that moniker, at least own it, just because that's kind of where I got my start too. So small world.
It is.
It is. So, to that end, let's talk a little bit more about today's program and what we're going to be doing on it. Which obviously the topic for today is what in the world is going on with IEQ, IAQ. Yeah, Susan and I have been discussing this a lot for the magazine lately for upcoming articles, but it hastens me back to the original cover story on the first issue of Healthy Indoors magazine. Be nice if I actually brought it up full screen. Uh,
Yeah.
what in the world happened to IAQ? Yeah.
Which,
So
like, yeah, like 5 minutes ago, I said, "Gosh, that looks exactly like what we did 9 years ago, minus the mask."
yeah, so that's the, I mean, in a way, that's kind of strange, right? That we're
Still talking about this?
we're still talking about it. What the hell's going on? Why?
Well,
Why?
well, let's like go back to 1999 when we were talking about, is there an industry or not an industry?
Okay.
And is it an industry or is it just a bunch of silos that actually work on indoor
Is
air
that
quality?
mutually exclusive though? I mean, can't the industry be a bunch of silos?
Well, who controls the industry?
Oh boy. Who controls Well, purportedly, any number of groups will tell you that they do.
So which one's right?
So who's in
Which
charge
one's
this
right?
week?
Who's in
I
charge this week?
I don't,
No, but that's actually a great question that actually came up in Carl Grimes' column, in this month's issue. He actually was at building science summer camp in Westford here in Massachusetts. Joe Stiebrook puts it on every year at the beginning of August, and he actually asked around, like what, who's who now, what is like what are all of these industry groups doing? What do they offer their members? And for Carl, who's again been around for just as long as we have, it was
longer
kind of,
actually. He's old as dirt.
well, he's older, but y- you know, but I will say that, like, Carl came on, very early on when I was,
Mhm.
working on things, on indoor air review, and he was like, what should I do? What should I join? And I said, join everything. And
Oh, as far as
by
organizations
yeah,
and
and by God,
affiliations.
he did.
Mhm.
But now you can tell, like, um, Carl's kind of been through the ringer with a lot of these groups because, they haven't done exactly what they advertise that they're gonna do in terms of membership.
Well, that I mean, that in of itself is, that's an interesting point, because things have changed, right? Post pandemic, has the yeah, how do these organizations, and there's a bunch of them. There's ones that are bona fide trade associations, right, that are incorporated as trade associations. There's some that are just not for profits that are operating for advocacy. There's different types of membership groups out there. There's some non-membership groups that are just certifying bodies. Uh, y- how do they remain relevant in today's market? We were having that discussion actually 2 days ago, right? How do they? I mean,
2
things
days
have
ago,
changed.
2 weeks ago,
Yeah. Well, you
it's
think about it, I
constant.
mean, years ago, right? You know, conferences were like, the end all thing. These organizations had these national conferences so that you could, everybody gets together, and that's how they were able to, network and learn educational stuff. We're talking pre-internet, right?
Yeah.
So that it made total sense. But like now, we are in a little bit of a different paradigm now, perhaps I would think, right? I mean, a little bit.
A little bit. What was interesting, like, let's just take Indoor Air Quality Association. I mean, like, really for the first time in a very long time. They actually had, their new president, Lisa Rogers, like do a, get interviewed for, for a consumer story. That hasn't happened for like decades. Um, and it certainly didn't happen during the pandemic when really, like we thought, industry groups, practitioners were really going to be out there, kind of like, like pushing the message. All right, like if like researchers in academia are out there pushing, yeah, COVID is airborne. You and I thought that, that these groups were going to be pushing, hey, like we're the practitioners that can help you, clean up your indoor air. Um, and like we didn't see anything out there in the consumer market from practitioners,
And that's true. What we saw was a lot of tweets, a lot of stuff coming from academia, right?
researchers. Yep.
Ton of that, right? I mean, the researchers were, they were ev- apparent everywhere. I mean, and that's I think there was more tweeting going on during the pandemic with these guys than I'd ever seen before. Um, but you're right. Yeah, we're the practitioners, the guys that actually, and when I say guys, the individuals, sorry,
Yeah,
the individuals.
there's actually a lot of women out there now.
I know. Well, there are in the industry. Well, I mean, there's 51% of the population are female, so you would think that there should be a representative portion somewhere near that in the industry, which is another comment that we can get into later.
Okay.
Because I'm
I
not sure
won't.
that's the case. But why were the practitioners present?
Well, we
What
still
do you
don't
think?
know why. I don't, I think that they were just out there like in the real world just trying to make money,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
I mean,
I mean,
that was
partially.
my, I mean, that was my thing. I mean, they certainly weren't just sitting at home, um, you know, not working, I don't think.
Right, many were out doing, like the ones that do services, providing services,
Yeah.
they were
I
going
mean,
out and
like,
sterilizing buildings for no freaking reason, but that's another story. Don't get me started on that shit because that was just
oh, so
like
so
let's go fog every part of the indoor environment to get rid of
so for
SARS-CoV-2.
you, so for you, every time you saw a picture of someone in a Tyvek suit with like a with like a sprayer doing like hygiene theater, that was a practitioner.
Well, yeah. Well, who was it? Who else? I mean, I guess it could have been people dressed up to appear to be practitioners. I mean, I don't. I mean, well, I mean, they were some of the practitioners. I'm not saying all the
Okay.
practitioners in the industry are bad. I'm one of them. I mean, that would be pretty self-incriminating. But I, I never did understand that. Like initially, well, that, yeah, where were they? Uh,
But it's a good question, and it's a question that we really haven't got a good answer.
yeah, no, we don't. We don't.
And we were asking that question last summer when, when we got involved with the, with the Healthy Buildings, ISIAC conference. That was a conference that, wanted to, again, to bring research to practice, wanted to, you really, really kind of like put their money where their mouth was, to get practitioners to come and to learn about, what's the latest research. Um, and, and then, we asked the question, well, like where are, where are the practitioners out there actually speaking, actually talking about this stuff.
Mhm.
And again, no one really had a great answer for us.
Well, and the problem is there's been this forever, the research to practice, and we have to global research to practice, and various incarnations of that phrase or have been, we hear them all the time. And but is there any are they anything other than just marketing things, or at least have they proven to be anything other than just marketing things thus far? I guess is a fair, it's not to say that there isn't some intent to try to have cross pollinate pollinization. That's the word I was looking for. But it doesn't, does it really happen, right?
Well, it happens on the marketing end. Um,
Okay.
but, I mean, if you like, if you take a gander at, what's going on in Instagram or TikTok, I mean, there's not a day that goes by that, a company isn't, trying to explain what's what does HEPA mean? What does indoor air quality mean?
Okay.
Like how does mold relate to indoor air quality? Um, I mean those are practitioners, right? But like, but again, I wonder, you know, where all the practitioners in relation to all the researchers out there, talking about their message. I mean, like, for example, um, John Hopkins University is doing a conference on September 8th. Actually, September 8th. It looks like everyone's doing a conference on September
Hmm.
8th. And, you know,
Yeah.
and like, it's like, it's this, national strategy for improving indoor air quality. And, and like you look at that speaker list and it's all, and there's no practitioners.
Hmm.
I mean, there's two companies that do, that do products. No one's on that agenda, doing practice.
Hmm.
Like again, like Carl says, like where are the where are the field practitioners?
Hmm.
There's no field practitioners on that agenda. So like, so you have a conference that is essentially, trying to set the strategy, try to set the agenda for improving indoor air quality, from the top, from the White House, because they have a representative from the White House coming.
Sure.
And where are the practitioners? Again, I mean, uh, whenever I see Joe Allen's name, and I love Joe Allen, he is such an amazing spokesperson for this, for this field. I don't think Joe Allen's going to come to your house and fix your indoor air quality problem. I don't,
Right. Okay.
I don't
Yeah. Yeah.
see, I mean, I don't see, um, like the speakers on the agenda coming to your house to, to fix your problem.
Right.
So, so again, where are the practitioners who are supposed to be coming out there and fixing your indoor air quality problem or your mold problem or whatever other issue you have? Where are those people in relation to the people that are now trying to set standards or trying to set policy? Um, you know,
Kind of missing in action. And again, the practitioner, the term practitioner is kind of a broad term, right? Because it encompasses all of the service providers, companies that actually do services, come in and do remediation, mitigation, abatement, as well as all the consultants, right? That come in and do the front end assessments, back end clearances, the testing, I mean, and I guess you could really say that the other side of practitioners are also the laboratories, right, that provide the analytical
yeah,
services, and really the supply side, right, the supply chain, the companies that make the products, materials, the chemicals, the equipment. It's all that's all the practitioner side. Would you agree?
definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, but again, I mean, while I, like applaud and appreciate the fact that, we're actually again, 'cause because this happened back in the early 90s where, where like environmental tobacco smoke was like a huge thing. And that was the quote unquote, like indoor air quality issue. Let's just solve secondhand smoke,
Hmm.
you know, and that was considered like, the IAQ standard or the, all right, let's how to, let's improve indoor air quality. Let's just get rid of this secondhand smoke. Now it's like clearly much a much bigger issue than just secondhand smoke, which for most of, for most places and states globally. That's it's pretty much gone.
Okay, but that's
Um,
interesting because you broached that too. Because in '92, right, or in the early '90s, the tobacco industry was funding most of the indoor air quality related research other than ETS, right? Environmental
yes,
tobacco smoke. In fact, that
yes.
was the caveat when they'd give millions of dollars for research is search everything else, fiberglass, look at everything else, every
Oh
other
yeah,
possible thing that could be a problem in the indoor environment. So let's face it, a lot of our early research was funded by the tobacco industry for this
yeah.
industry.
Well, I don't think that's the case anymore.
Well,
um,
no, no,
you
but I
know,
mean, but it was. I mean,
it was.
what a weird scenario.
It is.
It's basically I mean, basically the intent was, "Oh, yeah, the air's bad. Look over there. They're causing it." It's like it's the whataboutism at its finest, maybe. Uh,
Yeah, but again, I mean, I just thought back in the early '90s, I mean, you did get you know, I mean, NACA was like part of things, IICRC, RIA, and even IQA was, I mean, not in the early '90s, because didn't exist, but like in kind of towards the 2000s,
mhm.
they were involved in government stuff and um, and in like being asked their opinion about research and so forth. And again, I just wonder why, you know, like like industry groups are now almost like a tier 2, a tier 3, ask.
Yeah,
Um,
but I would argue that the industry groups, with the exception of the big players like the Ashrays of the world, that have a lot of clout, weren't really invited to the table. I mean, you speak to NADCA. I was the one that actually ran the NADCA research with
yeah.
EPA, and Tim Aber and I actually were involved with that heavily. And we got invited to the table because we were noisy. I mean, we were like that little dog nipping at your heels all the time. We kept annoying EPA to the point where they decided that they would give us a seat at the table and let us talk to them. But there was persistence. I mean, it didn't happen just by chance. But I
No,
don't I
but
don't know if that initiative happens anymore. I mean, is that really happening?
um, probably. I mean, I don't see it. Do you see it out there?
Not heavily. I mean, I
I
see
mean, like
everybody
I see,
talking about it.
again, I mean, I mean, for me, I am like a student of history, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, I'm like a student of IAQ history. So
True.
so for me, like I want to see like things today and in 2022 to to have progressed from 1994. Okay. I'm like, I want to be able to to have people show me like the actual timeline of where they were, where they are now. Okay. I don't
Okay.
want to I don't want to see the fact that in 2022, like I mean, we're basically making this up as we go
Well, we're
along.
relitigating the whole story. I mean,
But why? But why? I
because
mean,
people have a short freaking memory, I think is part of it. Just look at us.
but the
Just look at us.
story is already told. I
Yeah,
mean, the
but
story's
people.
out there.
Yeah, okay, but nobody pays attention. Uh, we're all about, I mean, especially now, we're a very short attention span type society. I'm talking mainly the United States here, but it's probably true for the entire planet. But especially in the United States, everything's very short. Like so. Nobody goes back and and reviews history that much, except for maybe the few historians in the world. You being one of the IAQ historians, I would actually consider you might be like the historian of the industry. You're right up there. You're one of them because you follow. I mean, the thing is, think about it from a journalistic standpoint. You followed the industry from its infant stages in the early '90s to today, which is not all the industry, right? I mean, there was industry preceding the '90s. There was some, and but I mean, you have a pretty good window of the formative years of indoor air quality. Agreed?
Yes. I would
Okay.
agree with that, but,
Yeah.
like, but again, I mean, I would, I would suspect everyone would have that kind of history or, like, want that kind of history so that they can, that now in 2022 that they can get their standards and their strategies, like, done quickly.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, I think there's this tendency to reinvent the wheel for some reason.
Well,
Is that to just create relevance for yourself? That you're coming up supposedly with something new?
well, there's nothing new
Well,
about any of this,
no,
right?
not
I mean,
really.
people want to say, "Oh, look at this product. This is brand new." And you're like, "Well, it's new because it has a new name, but the technology is still from, like, I mean, you can actually trace it back decades. It's just a better version of what came before."
Yeah, is it a better version, or is it not a better version? I mean, that raises that interesting concept, right? Right? There's always stuff being introduced, right? The new
Yes.
latest greatest. Everybody's looking well, from an investigative side, everybody wants the tricorder from Star Trek. So you can just flip it and go beep beep beep, and the air is good, and do all the analysis with one little device. Within 10 seconds they know whether they need oxygen packs or whatever. They know the air is good. So everybody wants that on the consulting side, and everybody wants the magic potion that they can apply to the indoor environment, whether they spray it, fog it, spit it, drop it, I don't know what, whatever, that's going to just fix all the indoor air quality problems. And
Okay. Let's go back to last week's show. All right.
okay.
And
Oh, I'm short attention span. What do we do on last week?
you had Claire Barnett
Oh yeah,
and
the school show. I remember.
talking about schools, and and at the very end she talked about the lack of a knowledge database, lack of a knowledge base.
Like an archive where you
Yeah.
can readily
Yeah.
get to it. Okay.
Yes. And which again, sparked my ears. I was like, ooh, knowledge base, all right. And this is something that Carl Grimes has brought up before too, is that, all right, where's the knowledge base? And then two, who should, who should be the owner of that? Who should, you know um
The owner or the caretaker? I mean, I
they're
don't know, owner.
the the caretaker. That's a better word for
It
it.
it sound it sound it sounds better.
Well, like for me, like I'm all about, like, who controls what,
Right, right. I get
what
that.
aspect of, of things. Um and and that was a great question of, what Claire brought up is, like, who has this knowledge base, and who caretakes it, okay? And I asked that question, I mean, let's just look at schools and, like, in all the stuff that's happened to schools over the last 2 years. Schools now suddenly have a ton of money to put in, like, new ventilation systems. Some of them haven't put in new ventilation systems and filtration systems. They've actually, like, use more of, like, the money to say, oh, let's get this great new product to, like, because this will actually solve our problems. I'm not going to mention any names because that's, like, we've been talking about that for
Talk
years.
about litigating the past. I don't want to
Yeah.
litigate the future.
Yeah. But, like,
But
why is no one talking about, like, for example, tools for schools right now in relation to schools, and, like, and, like, what's the best bang for your dollar in terms of, like, you know um how, like, we've been talking about schools for decades,
mhm.
in relation to tools for schools was created so that schools didn't have to spend very much money, or, like, really no money. It was like,
Well,
it
it
was
was a
very
start. It was
it,
designed to be a starting point to give them
yes,
some requisite prerequisite
base.
knowledge to be able to start somewhere.
But again, we're talking about the knowledge base.
Mhm.
That is a knowledge base for schools.
Hmm.
All right. And, and granted, EPA doesn't throw any money towards that anymore, but still, where's Tools for Schools in relation to all of this, now new money in relation to COVID? You know, where, again, where is that knowledge base in relation to what's now out there? And again, why are schools being asked to now, like, think about ventilation and filtration and like new products and everything without, like, without that, like, knowledge base that, like, you know still hasn't got to like every single school in the US,
I
right?
mean that's a valid point. Honestly, Susan. I mean, because I would say most of the information in the Tools for Schools kit still relevant.
It's
Yep.
absolutely
I
still
mean, there's
relevant.
some new stuff we're talking. The pandemic created some new stuff and some new wrinkles that we didn't talk about in schools, Tools for Schools back in the '90s, and that was updated again a little. I think it was updated in the early 2000s. There was
The
some
late
modifications, a little
90s.
bit. I
Yeah.
think they changed some of the graphics. That's about it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's strange, but I mean, it goes back to the same thing we were just talking about as far as y- y- you know we got a short attention span. People don't, they always want to, everybody wants to reinvent the wheel all the time instead of going back and learning off of past mistakes and past positive things, right? And incorporating all the stuff that we did already. I mean, why do we have to relearn everything?
Well, we have to relearn everything because we don't have a knowledge base. No one, no one's out there saying we are the caretaker of this knowledge. Or 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 we control this knowledge. Everyone needs this knowledge in order to get to the next step of indoor air quality. All right. So where is it? Is it like, is it at a university somewhere? Is it at Harvard? I mean, because again,
Mm,
if that's where it is, somewhere someone has to be able to say Harvard is the caretaker of all of this knowledge base. Okay. And like,
hmm.
anything new you have, let's just add to that. Okay. Or is it, or is it the knowledge base, or does the Indoor Air Quality Association, are they going to be the caretakers of this knowledge base? You know, who knows? But like, but again, but these are questions that, I mean, at this point, with all this money flowing around in terms of like, the COVID money, infrastructure money, these are questions that you have to like throw out there and you have to ask and say, who, where is it, and who's caretaking it for you, and who's like expanding it.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess yeah. Okay. I mean,
If you want, you can disagree with me, but
no,
this
no,
is a
I'm not disagreeing with you. I think, I would argue that maybe we, with, with when we set out with this whole endeavor with Healthy Indoors, tried to do some of that and try to consolidate and bring some information into a central location. But have we achieved that? Of course not. No, I mean, their stuff is so disjoint out there. But I mean, even just within the individual silos, like you go to EPA's website, that's a tough place to find information if you're a consumer who doesn't really understand what you're looking for. I mean, there's a lot of great information on the EPA site, but you kind of got to chop your way through it to find things. It's getting better. I mean, they've been modifying things over the years, and it's better than it was a few years ago. But it's still, eh, information is not easy to find. And if you just go out and do a search on Google, now you're going to find all of the brand associated puffery marketing crap that's out there on every topic. So, how do you decipher what's like legit knowledge based stuff and stuff that's just sales propaganda?
um all right, I'll even like throw another
Oh
blow
boy,
your mind thing. Okay,
wrinkles. There's a lot of wrinkles here
there's a
today.
lot of wrinkles. Okay, because even if you have a um a company or like a CEO of a company, all right? And they're out there like, educating the public about like, and all they're using is EPA stuff, all
Okay.
right? And they're just educating the public with like EPA, IAQ stuff, lead stuff, asbestos stuff, mold stuff, whatever, okay? Is that, you know, is that like snake oil or is that like real education? And I say that because you have like a for-profit company out there using the information, but they're obviously going to spin it, towards
The
their own
but the
company.
degree
And
of the spin is where it defines whether or not it's education versus snake oil. I think honestly, if the organization's truly putting out educational material in a relatively unbiased fashion, and then they offer some of their marketing stuff along with it, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, and that's not snake oil. I think the problem is like when you start to take and appropriate some of this stuff that's maybe originally not biased toward a single product or technology, and you try to make it sound like EPA or X agency endorses this or recommends our methodology for doing this. That's where I think it starts to get real dicey.
um like I come from like, I'm like a journalist by trade,
I get
okay?
that.
And
What was that,
so
a
I
slam? Was that
no, 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 but it's just interesting because like, I've like worked at like some of the top newspapers, magazines in the country, all right? And then all of a sudden I got this little job at this boutique publishing firm
Mhm.
doing indoor air quality. And and again, like maybe, maybe it's because I like started when I was like what, 24,
Six?
25. um you know and I like and I basically like, everyone told me, like, again, when I was 25, I'm a lot older now, but like for since I've been 25, everyone is like touted the fact that the you know the public needs to be educated about this, all right? We need to create consumer awareness, and again, I've taken that very personally, over the last 30 years.
Mhm.
You know and yet I still hear that. Like, I still hear, oh, no, 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 we just need to educate the public better. And I'm like, how can
Yes.
you how can you do that without any bias? All right? There's
Well,
there's
okay,
there's
okay, but
bias.
that's a whole commentary on higher education, maybe. I mean,
Well,
there's some inherent
is
bias in
there?
anything you
Is
teach.
there? Okay.
Well,
Who's to
maybe a little
say,
bit.
all right, who's to say like that, like, for example, like the White House is correct in that the fact that like, HVAC contractors now, are the people that should like do, like do ventilation and filtration. Granted, they should, but like, like
Well, I mean,
who's gonna be the caretaker that makes sure that happens in a correct, in a correct, unbiased way, that like, that again, consumers get the best ventilation and filtration out there, okay? Um,
well, that's a tough one because I mean, who's going to be the caretaker? The federal government? I mean, they're biased, with our whole system, there's lobbyists, paying for everybody's elections and campaign financing. So, obviously the people with the most money buy the most influence, in our whole hierarchy of how we elect people. And then I mean, even the organizations, right? Within these larger organizations that represent the various sectors, like you mentioning HVAC. So there's several organizations that are pretty prominent there just in the United States. And then globally, you've got other ones. And they're all going to spin it toward their constituency, right?
yes.
I mean, wouldn't you expect that a little bit?
I would expect it, but but again, I just want to know who is the caretaker? And maybe that's, I mean, maybe that's the big question.
That's a good
Who
question.
who's the caretaker of all this information? Who's the one that, like, that makes sure that, you know, that the information is not skewed in such a way or biased in such a way? I mean, because again, I mean, you could say that, God, you could say any of this information is like has a bias towards it. I mean, you could say EPA information is biased just because Congress doesn't give, EPA any money to, like, to basically, like, make sure the information is like fully up to date.
But I mean, so you mentioned EPA. EPA, when they do these guidance documents, lean on people from private sector and
Private
organizations,
sector practitioners, organizations.
they, because I was involved in helping them write one of those. So
Yep.
and I will say, that while they try to curate and steward, and get credible stuff, they lean on the outside for a lot of info. So a lot of stuff they publish is just stuff that really was maybe leaned on a little by the people they were relying on. I'm trying to
Yeah.
say that in the nicest way I can say it.
No, but like, I
Yeah.
mean, but even like ASHRAE, I mean, those are consensus documents. Those are
Sure. I mean,
like,
they go through a long process. Sure.
yeah. No, I mean,
Well,
again, I mean,
who would
now,
you okay, let me go right to the point. Who would you advocate as the steward, who should be, the curator of, the who should be the gatekeeper?
the
The
gatekeeper.
freaking gatekeeper.
Well, that's actually that means there's two people, right? There's a gatekeeper, and then there's a caretaker.
Ah, because the
Ah,
gatekeeper is more of the armed guard at the doorway,
yes.
and the caretaker is the one who cleans the dust off,
Or actually, or is the one that
updates,
actually
puts the
updates.
repaints the
Yeah. finishes
in that museum.
And actually, instead of a gatekeeper, maybe it should be a bouncer or somebody, because it's like a club, and there should be a bouncer out the outside, checking your IDs at the door.
Bouncer. The oh, yeah, okay.
These are questions that keep me up at night after all of these
These
years.
are questions. Me too, though. Honestly, there's a lot of questions.
You know,
It's this is really a great format because we've done shows like this in the past over the years. Joe and I did a couple of these back, and you and I did one I think like a year and a
yeah,
half ago. We don't do
yeah.
it frequently enough though.
And that's the thing. Like, maybe we should that
Or because
because, like,
because we're asking a lot of questions. We don't have the answers, but I think it's more important that we are our to our audience. I think is to at least pose the questions.
because I don't see, like, organizations asking these questions. I don't
But
see, I don't, again, all I see, like, like, social media wise, is like, hey, look at this, like, look at this, like squirrel, look over
right,
there,
right. Well,
you
but that's
know,
how that's the nature of the beast now, though.
you
Everybody
know,
is
and
very
and I'm like,
fragmented.
and I'm like listening to, like, celebrities say, hey, I had mold in my home, and this is what happened to me 20 years ago, and, like, hey, now I'm an expert. And I'm like, you know what? Technically you are, but
No, you're not.
as an expert, but that's the thing. Am I an expert because I've been doing this for 30 years?
You're more of an expert than a lot of the purported experts.
I just want to make sure that these quote unquote experts are, like, are educating to, like, with a curriculum, right? I mean, like, you're out there, like, teaching kids. I mean, well, actually that's a whole different, like thing, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Actually incorporating indoor environmental issues into the curriculum.
or climate change issues,
All
or
of it.
like all of it, or even engineering. I mean,
Some
like,
people would define all of that as indoctrination, though.
yes, except, you know what, except in my house, where, like
Well, you
my kids are like, don't talk to me about indoor air quality. I don't really care about it. And I'm like, you know what? You are gonna learn this.
Well,
and
one way or another, you're gonna that
you
that
know,
you know that it, it's like saying, I really don't adhere to gravity. It's like, yeah, okay, let's see how that works for you.
you will do your capstone project on this.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're
but
coming from an engineering household. It's somewhat engineering based there, at least. Uh,
yeah, but again, it's I mean, like, God, let's talk about engineering. I mean, like, a lot of these researchers out there are engineers,
right,
you
right.
know, and like, where is the like, and again, like, where's the best practices? Where's the standards of care that are out there for indoor air quality engineering? Um,
Well, I mean, there's not even really indoor air quality engineering, indoor environmental quality engineering. Is there even a curriculum where somebody can actually get a professional engineer's uh, license for indoor environmental? I don't think that exists, does it?
Not really, no.
Right.
Because I mean, like right now, like Dr. Richard Corsi is like, is actually teaching an indoor air quality class.
But there's not a full blown and
No,
like you don't have a degree based in that specifically, like a
no, but
mechanical
like,
engineer or an electrical engineer. You're not an indoor environmental engineer.
yeah, no, no. I actually like, and again, I mean, I did my research, um, like last year, like when my kid was like applying to engineering schools, I was like, all right, like where can I find schools that have like something related to indoor air quality. Um, but there's there's trying to be classes on it,
Hmm.
but not, I mean, but there's no like minors in it. There's no, I mean, there's not really a lot of, I mean, there's classes,
But see that, I mean,
which I guess is a good start.
no, it is a good start, but that's been one of the problems I think since the beginning of the industry is who do you lean on as an expert? Like who's the expert in the industry? And I asked this question because like which discipline, is the gatekeeper for the industry too? It's like, is it an engineer, is it an industrial hygienist? Is it, there's so many different disciplines. People come from public health, they come from contracting, they come from architectural design, from that aspect. I mean, and probably a whole host of other areas that people come from: chemistry, chemical engineering, microbiology, of course. That's the microbiome
Yeah.
is a big factor. So I mean, but the point is like, who is the qualified individual to weigh in on this, or is it really more of does it have to be more of a hybrid, of like a lot of different disciplines, right?
Can you imagine? I
But I
mean,
mean, but I
no,
mean, one single discipline, like,
mm,
is is a mechanical engineer really qualified to tell you all the indoor environmental issues in a built environment? Probably not.
but again, I always go back to the question, who's going to come to my house and fix my problem? Is it Joe Allen? Yay, me. If I could get Joe Allen to come out to my house and do an investigation on what's going on, what's wrong with my house, I am like, I'm like, thumbs up, yay, this is great. But I
Right,
don't
but
think
it's not
that's
going to be.
ever gonna happen,
No, no,
so
it's
that's
not going to
why.
be. None of the researchers. I mean, none of them are coming to your house to help you. And
So, so what does that mean? That means somebody, some organization, some group has to be the ones that says, all right, we are the ones that will teach practitioners how to fix houses, right?
yeah, but
Or like fix workplaces. I mean, fix schools. Wait, which one? Because they're all individually,
But
you know,
the problem is, again, like as this graphic alludes, it's like it's showing it like a one directional, transfer of information and knowledge. But that's not what it is at all, right? I mean, when you think about it, it can't be that way. It has to be. It has to be. I mean, I see it as almost like a three cog thing, maybe even more. But at the very least, academia and research to practitioners, and we already defined what we're calling practitioners is pretty
yeah.
everybody does everything or supplies something to the industry. And then you got the consumers who are everybody, whether they're commercial consumers, residential consumers, everybody is a consumer in some level. right? So there has to be like some there I mean, I guess it's a triangle. I mean, there has to be bilateral information sharing because the research people don't even know what's affecting the people down at the end, the actual consumers of the services and the stuff that's going on necessarily if they
Well,
sit
with
in a
their
laboratory,
consumers though, right?
huh?
I
Well,
mean, a
they're consumers, but
researcher.
yes, but they're biased. I mean, we're all biased. I mean, there needs to be more. And I don't know what the mechanism is. We don't. I don't think we have this mechanism to
Yeah.
really get the information back and forth. Certainly, it's really nice to say you're going to have like a 3-day conference somewhere in some tropical space and say that's going to fix all of it, but it's not. And because
I want to go to
how
Hawaii
much
and do this. Let's let's all go to Hawaii and do
Yeah,
this.
exactly. I know and again, conceptually that sounds wonderful that you might get at least a group of several hundred people in the industry together to maybe talk and cross-pollinate. Great. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But there needs to be a lot more than that, right? I mean, I've seen so much good research, to that
Yeah.
conference. I mean, the Healthy
Yeah.
Buildings Conference had some great research, and there was
Yeah,
stuff
but it's
that the
the,
research was done a couple years ago. I'm in the industry as a practitioner and as a
yeah,
media person, and I
but
wasn't
that's
aware
the
of it.
problem. I mean, that's the problem with research. It never filters down
But we're
into
even
like
we're even the media, and we didn't
in
even
practice.
know. I
Yeah.
mean, on some of this, it was like news to us. Like, when the hell you did this study 2 years ago? You've been doing this for 2 years, and nobody knows anything about it, and it actually could, substantially affect how people do things, at least in one aspect, and nobody knows
Well,
about
but
it.
that's I don't want to like make a comment because like because a lot of times what happens is that like big research actually gets filtered down to like the New York Times and to
Right.
the Washington Post, and then it gets filtered to consumers who like have no idea really what it really means,
Mhm.
and then they ask their practitioner, and then their practitioner doesn't know anything either, and it's like, all right, what just happened here?
Well, because the problem is there's multiple different languages you gotta be speaking here, right? Academia to practitioner is already a language transfer. There's a barrier there, right? You know,
Yes.
and on the research side, you've got, practical research, people that are in the field that do field studies versus people that stay, more in a laboratory environment and don't see real world. They just do pilot studies, because they're right. I mean, people that actually get out in the field and do field work have more of an understanding what's really happening in the world when they get outside of
Yeah.
their university and they actually do something, you know.
Yeah.
But they're still not speaking the same language necessarily, right? And then, a- and to take really high level white paper, information and even distill it so that practitioners can read it is a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, just that whole indoor chemistry paper, 33 pages from the study in Austin.
Yeah.
Um, I actually flipped through that after Joe. They spoke about that 2 weeks ago on Joe Use's show
Yeah.
or couple IQ Radio,
Yeah.
and I actually downloaded it and
Yeah.
and read through it, and I agree. Like as a person that's like maybe an expert practitioner, some of that stuff was way over my head even, and some of the
Yeah.
on the chemistry side I was like, whoa, I was glazing over reading it. So how is that ever going to get down to like the average field
W-
technician, or more importantly down to a consumer, and have them understand any of that? They're not. So how do we, what's
Well,
the mechanism by which we
exactly.
transfer information in a way that people can understand it and make it actionable?
Yes.
That's a whole
W-
show.
which goes back to your knowledge base.
Hmm.
Where's the knowledge base? Who's the gatekeeper? Who's the caretaker of it?
Why do I think you want to be like the caretaker?
You know what? I always thought that these questions would be already answered for me. I mean,
Hmm.
I never thought that like back in what 92 I was going to be like, "Oh, well this is all just going to get solved." Right?
Well, it seemed. I mean, in '92 and '93, Henry Waxman and Kennedy was the other one pushing that, right?
Kennedy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they had, so they're pushing in Congress IQ legislation that seemed like it had some steam. It was a lot of it was being driven for the
94.
environmental tobacco smoke, and the '94 midterm elections, rug gets yanked out, and that's dead meat.
Yeah, now Kennedy's getting kicked off of um Facebook for for other stuff. But no, but I mean,
Yeah, okay.
but really, I mean, this is actually, I know, okay, because I know we're running out of time and stuff.
Now
But
we can
this
go a
is
little
like,
over it.
but,
I we can have
but
some
this is,
latitude here.
yeah, oh, because it's us, right? We
It's
could
just
just,
us because who's going to stop us?
these are just fascinating conversations because, like, because again, I just don't see, like, you know, and again, I mean, this isn't like a crystal ball, that you look into and say, okay, the answer is going to come to you. This is like literally 30,000, view stuff that you actually, I mean, like, you could look at, the whole world view of, like, who's already out there, who has what, who controls who, and and again, I don't see, like, who can, who has the ability to put together this knowledge base, and who can, like, actually, you know, caretake it in a way that, it filters down, or that's it's almost like a colander effect where,
Mhm.
it just kind of like, it's like water, it just kind of sprinkles everywhere. Um, but like, who could do this? I mean, I'm believe me, I'm not volunteering for it. I just
Yeah.
assumed back when I first started that this was going to be done, and now, like, and now when I, like, listen, to, like, webinars from the National Academy of Engineers, and, I listen to, like, um, sessions that, what, on ISIAC conferences and everything. I'm like, I mean, this is like what, like 100 years down the road or something, because that's how people
Yeah.
talk. That, yeah, like, we're not even close to, like, having the answers for this. And I'm like, God,
Yeah.
this is like 30 years,
See, and I'm
and I
gonna
would,
call bullshit on that. That's lame because you don't have to have all the answers to make incremental progressive change based on what you know today. Okay, and that's like the whole, way you postulate scientific theories in general. They're subject to change, they're subject to evolution. And I think it's, I don't know, I just, I think, to have inaction because we don't have all the answers. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. It's like you gotta evolve this industry, and we've already 30 years into this. We know a lot.
yeah.
We know enough to make positive impact and make change in the indoor environments on all the built environments globally. We could do this. Okay, could we make them perfect? I don't know, probably not. Things, there'll
No.
be new
Well,
technology,
and it,
but we
but
already
you know
we're
what?
talking
It
about the
does.
same shit we were talking about in the 90s, and we still haven't done it. The schools had deferred maintenance for the last 30, 35, 40 years, so
Yeah.
nobody's
Now,
fixed their old crappy mechanical equipment that wasn't
yeah.
any good to begin with. It's all falling apart. I mean,
You know, I don't know. I mean, don't get me started in schools, because, I mean, people, people get all mad because, because schools want to use, like, let's just say, ozone to, like, solve their problems and stuff. And you're like, well, do you blame them? They haven't been educated enough not to, like, like, choose a wild and crazy idea, right?
right, right. Well,
I mean,
again,
no
it,
one's, like, out there, and again, I mean, I mean, like, you talk about the big school associations, they're not out there talking about indoor air quality all the time. I mean, it's,
no.
it's maybe like one session out of, like, 500. Um,
Well, I would say that the pandemic drilled us down a little bit, because consumer awareness, right? In light of the pandemic, we're more attuned to indoor environmental concerns now than we've ever been in our lifetimes.
yeah,
I'm talking, collectively as a nation and as a world. Everybody around the world is more attuned to ventilation issues and things like that because of the SARS-CoV-2 transmission, of course. But
yeah.
nonetheless, at least it's somewhat in the forefront of people's minds. So there is an opportunity to do stuff now, and we understand, that there's going to be more of these airborne transmitted viruses probably in pandemics. This is not a one-off.
Nope.
Hopefully, it's not happening on a semi-annual basis, but It could, and the reality is
Well,
we need to build more resilient environments, indoor environments, built environments that can better handle and protect individuals in this.
I mean, it's not even over with.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, we're not done.
yeah, I mean, this
Yeah,
isn't
we're not
done.
done.
I mean, like, I mean, one of my best friends just her whole family just got COVID. I'm like, wow, how did that happen?
Oh yeah. Well,
Um,
I mean,
I mean,
my house, I've had it at least twice, and I think a third time, but I rapid tested a little late because I had a sinus infection, and I think it was happening concurrently. So I think I had it 3 times. My wife is like Typhoid Mary, Typhoid Christy. I mean, she's had it at least 4 times,
yeah, no, I mean, like,
and we're
my
vaccinated.
yeah, no, I mean, like, my college kid just, is spent the summer at her college. She just had marching band camp, and like, and half the band just got COVID, and you're like, wow,
I mean, the difference is the outcomes have gotten progressively
they're
more
better.
positive.
Yeah,
Well, first of all, the virus has evolved or devolved to the point where it's more contagious and less deadly, which is what viruses do. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
Dr. David Krause was on our show so many times in 2020. It's what's funny is we should go back and play some of Krause's clips because Krause called this right from the beginning in March of
yeah,
2020. I mean, he
he
was
did.
saying all this stuff, being a former public health guy, like this is how it's going to go. And
Yeah,
damn, he was right about everything. Almost everything he
wow.
cited was pretty much on. I got to do a mashup of
That
famous
would actually
Dave
be
quotes.
just a great show to,
Yeah,
like,
just David
to
Krause
yeah,
quotes.
like David Krause over the
I should
last
bring him on and play
few
clips of
years.
David Krause
Yeah.
to him and make him watch himself.
He'll be, like, so embarrassed. He'd be
Oh,
like, "Ah."
he wouldn't do it. I don't think I could twist his arm to do that.
Oh, I
Well,
think
we are getting to that time point.
yeah,
We haven't solved any of these monumental issues. What we have done though is brought them up.
yes, which is
This has to
always
be. I think this needs to be
fun.
a more frequent recurring segment that we do this kind of thing. Maybe not every month, but every couple months we should do a show like this, or just do a bonus show. Just do an extra one.
Yeah, or do an after hour show.
Just what we need is another program to produce here.
Um, well, but actually, before we go, we should actually name all the things that are happening on September 8th. So I think it's fascinating.
Okay.
So bring
I'm
up the
down with that.
graphic.
Okay. Well, first off, the Johns Hopkins event.
John Hopkins is having a national, like 1 day national conference on putting together a strategy in order to improve indoor air quality. And it's free for it's in DC. If you need to register, I think you have to register before September 1st. So if you need an invite, I have them. So send me a message and I will
We could
I'll get you
we'll
there.
put that up on the community
Yeah,
too. We'll push that out as up on the community and up on healthyindoors.com. That'll help a little bit.
yeah.
Okay. Also,
Also
um,
the experience
the
is
experience big show.
big show happening in Las Vegas
Hmm.
on September 8th, and then also Bob, you're gonna go hang out with Corbett
Corbett and
and
Grace
Grace,
Lunsford.
yeah,
Yeah,
in
the hosts
Ithaca.
of the PBS show Home Diagnosis. They're in the process of filming their third season, and they are doing a live like town hall event at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York on the 8th as well. So yeah, we'll be there hanging with them. And so that should be pretty interesting. There's one other event going on that week too. It's not just the week of Labor Day, but it's crazy. Yeah, and I think what's safe to say, I alluded earlier that traffic to events has been down, and it has been. AHR, a lot of these events have really had pretty sizable uh, reduction in the standard attendance that they had prior to the pandemic. But I will say the experience last year's event was huge, right? And I anticipate it's going to be huge again.
Yep,
They just seem to be able to get a lot of people there, and they do a lot of innovative stuff. So it's definitely on the restoration disaster side of the industry, and it's huge. And it's in Vegas, which is not a bad idea to put an event in Vegas. I've
in
always said that.
September. In September is
There's a
great
couple
too.
good reasons to do it there. Well, I mean, Vegas. back when I was in organizations helping plan for conferences, I was always like, go to Vegas. People want to go to Vegas. It's not hard to draw people there.
No, but it's also like fun to go to Orlando and Austin
Or
and
or these are, you know what? Oddly enough, these are places that you ran
DC.
conferences. As you mentioned these things. Yeah, you said Orlando and you said Austin. You pretty much named all the places where you ran a lot of events over the years.
God, like we ran them like everywhere.
Well,
So
I know, but I
so
mean,
I
but
mean,
some of your favorite. I mean, you ran a lot of Vegas and and you definitely did Austin several times. Well,
yeah,
Baltimore. You know what? You're right. Everywhere, everywhere is a good place.
yeah. It's funny. We should do another show, like in December or January, and do like a pre-conference year
Ooh,
show.
the pre-conference show,
Yeah.
as opposed to just doing one where we just like hawk one conference for
Oh
60
no,
minutes.
no. Like we should spend 60 minutes talking about like
We
all
could
the
just talk
shows out
about them,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
rather than bring their talking heads on. I like that idea. Well, so I guess we are at that time now, right?
Yes, we are.
It's for what it's worth. So we are going to have to move towards the sign off time. But I really want to point out, that this was a little bit different, a little different format than normal this week, because we just at working on the publications, it became blatantly apparent that we're at a volatile time, I think, in this industry right now, and there's a lot of just a lot of movement, a lot of people vying for position. Who will be the next leader in the industry, at least purportedly. All these things are out there, so a lot going on, and I think a lot more to talk about before we're done. Want to definitely remind you all about the online global community. If you're not a member of it, it's you get to it at global.healthyindoors.com. Again, this show and a lot of the stuff's in public space there. But if you were to actually become a member of the community, which I thoroughly implore you to do, you're going to have the opportunity to see, even this week participate, or excuse next week participate in the Ask Me Anything event with Cole Stanton. That's going to be a great forum. It's opportunity to actually sit there and ask questions, and in real time, or have recorded questions. Um, so that's a good thing. I'd also like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Particles Plus, and we've got a little blurb. At Particles Plus, we offer cost effective instruments for superior indoor and outdoor environmental awareness. We measure fine and coarse particles accurately from zero 0.3 to 25 microns because our core technology is based on calibration standards and repeatability. Our instruments measure mass concentrations, PM 2.5 and PM 10, but most importantly, we measure the size distribution of the particles by providing up to 30 channels. Get a free quote today at particlesplus.com. And I can honestly say, give the testimonial here. We use Particles Plus. I'm an indoor environmental consultant, been using their hardware for what, 6, 7 years now. I love it. And I've been using particle counters since my early days in the early 90s. And great equipment, great hardware. So there we go. So special thanks to Susan Valenti for joining us today. It was interesting. Are you muted?
Thank you for having me, Bob.
Of course. So with that, everybody, thanks so very much for joining us. We'll be back again next week, 1 to 2 p.m. Derek Dene will be talking with us on some really interesting stuff. Actually, he's been somebody that's been involved in the industry. Was he president of IAQA at one point? He was vice president. He
Vice
was on the
President.
board a long time. And but he's involved with some new technology that will be kind of interesting to speak about. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, the online global community, back again next week. And until that time, I'm Bob Krell, founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon.